The efficient handling and storing of materials is vital to the construction industry, as these operations provide a continuous flow of raw materials, parts, and assemblies through the workplace and ensure that materials are available when needed. Yet the improper handling and storing of materials can cause costly injuries. Workers frequently cite the weight and bulkiness of objects being lifted as major contributing factors to their injuries. The second factor frequently cited was body movement. Bending, followed by twisting and turning, were the more commonly cited movements that caused back injuries or back pain. In addition, workers can be injured by falling objects, improperly stacked materials, or by various types of equipment. When manually moving materials, however, workers should be aware of potential injuries, including the following: strains and sprains from improperly lifting loads or from carrying loads that are either too large or too heavy. Fractures and bruises caused by being struck by materials or by being caught in pinch points. And cuts and bruises caused by falling materials that have been improperly stored or by incorrectly cutting ties or other securing devices. Consequently, everyone should examine their workplace to detect any unsafe or unhealthful conditions, practices, or equipment, and take the necessary steps to correct them. Moving, handling, and storing materials. When manually moving materials, you should seek help when a load is so bulky it cannot be properly grasped or lifted, when they cannot see around or over it, or when a load cannot be safely handled. For loads with sharp or rough edges, wear gloves or other hand and forearm protection. To avoid injuries to the hands and eyes, use gloves and eye protection. When the loads are heavy or bulky, the mover should also wear steel-toed safety shoes or boots to prevent foot injuries if the worker slips or accidentally drops a load. Storage areas must be kept free from accumulated materials that may cause tripping, fires, or explosions, or that may contribute to the harboring of rats or other pests. When stacking and piling materials, it's important to be aware of such factors as the material's height and weight, how accessible the stored materials are to the user, and the condition of the containers where the materials are stored. Using materials handling equipment. To reduce potential accidents associated with workplace equipment, employees need to be trained in the proper use and limitations of the equipment they operate. This includes knowing how to effectively use equipment such as cranes and slings. Cranes. Only thoroughly trained and competent persons are permitted to operate cranes. Operators should know what they are lifting and what it weighs. Plan lifts before starting them to ensure that they are safe. Take additional precautions and exercise extra care when operating around power lines. Some mobile cranes cannot be operated with outriggers in the traveling position. When used, the outriggers must rest on firm ground, on timbers, or be sufficiently cribbed to spread the weight of the crane and the load over a large enough area. All cranes must be inspected frequently by persons thoroughly familiar with the crane, the methods of inspecting the crane, and what can make the crane unserviceable. When working with slings, employers must ensure that they are visually inspected before each use and during operation, especially if used under heavy stress. A damaged or defective sling must be removed from service. Slings must not be shortened with knots or bolts or other makeshift devices. Sling legs that have been kinked must not be used. Slings must not be loaded beyond their rated capacity, according to the manufacturer's instructions. Suspended loads must be kept clear of all obstructions, and crane operators should avoid sudden starts and stops when moving suspended loads. Employees must remain clear of loads about to be lifted and suspended. Ergonomics is defined as the study of work and is based on the principle that the job should be adapted to fit the person rather than forcing the person to fit the job. Ergonomics includes restructuring or changing workplace conditions to make the job easier and reducing stressors that can cause injuries. In the area of materials handling and storing, Ergonomic principles may require controls, such as reducing the size or weight of the objects lifted, installing a mechanical lifting aid, or changing the height of a pallet or shelf. In addition to using ergonomic controls, there are some basic safety principles that can be employed to reduce injuries resulting from handling and storing materials. When using aisles and passageways to move materials mechanically, sufficient clearance must be allowed for aisles at loading docks, through doorways, wherever turns must be made, and in other parts of the workplace. Providing sufficient clearance for mechanically moved materials will prevent workers from being pinned between the equipment and fixtures in their workplace, such as walls, racks, posts, or other machines. Sufficient clearance will also prevent the load from striking an obstruction and falling on an employee. In other words, material handling and storing takes an effort on your part. Think about safety when moving, storing, or lifting anything. It's your responsibility, but it's an important part of your job.